A few weeks ago, I started talking about the lessons I wish I could have taught myself as a 20-year-old. One of those retrospective hindsight is 2020 things I wish I knew. So in today's episode, the topic I'm going to discuss is that indecision is in fact decision. Enjoy. My name is Andrew Stephen Rose. Welcome to the show. For years, I've been known as the gym guy. This show isn't about the gym. Some of it might be, but most of it, it's about business. It's about health. It's about your life, your relationships, and optimizing all of it to be the best you can be. So the thing that I've probably revisited the most in my life, or at least reflected upon in an effort to learn and to grow and to become a better human, a better version of me. It's something that I feel is extremely applicable to you in any number of situations, whether it's interpersonal, it's, relationship wise or with family, professionally, whether you work for someone or whether you own your own business, or it comes to your own health, making decisions regarding, which doctor to see, or if you really want to get into talking about vaccinations and things like that. Obviously it's a pretty broad topic, but the overarching theme that I want to talk about is that in those moments, in those examples, we all have decisions to make. And some of us, myself included, and possibly you, if you're listening to this, it's extraordinarily important to be decisive. And it doesn't mean to be foolishly spontaneous or, I guess, when you proceed just with reckless abandon, right? I think spontaneity is great. I think being, sometimes it's okay to be reckless. Sometimes it's okay to just go for it, to just wing it. And I think in a lot of instances, there's no better way to learn than by doing. And as you may have heard me say before, it's sometimes the best school is the school of hard knocks. So, but today, I think it's really important to touch on this topic, because when you're faced with a decision of any magnitude, but more importantly, big decisions, life-changing decisions, starting a business, starting or ending a relationship, starting or changing or stopping a training routine or a training program or a diet. So really any area of your life. The hesitance to make a decision, the indecision in that moment. Being indecisive is in fact being decisive. There are plenty of areas in life that are not black and white. There's a lot of gray area. There's a lot of subtle nuances and a lot of variables that realistically they're not controllable. I've talked about that before, of controlling the controllables, and obviously you kind of have to take your hands off the reins of the things that you can't control. But when the time comes to be black and white and be incredibly decisive, and you hesitate, or you make the choice not to be decisive, that's still being decisive. Indecision in that moment is making the decision to not commit to a different outcome, settling on the outcome that you have, or resigning yourself to accepting where you are. Think about your relationships, friendships. It could be a romantic relationship. It could be a familial relationship. It could be a business relationship, a partnership. You feel you're unhappy in your current situation. Same thing with your training, your fitness, your health. You're unhappy with your current situation or your current status. You have to make a decision in that moment to make a change. And that fear of discomfort often leads us to staying in the same place. Fear will keep you captive. Fear will keep you from making a jump. As uncomfortable as a situation might be, as undesirable as a situation might be, you're familiar with it. Whether it's been months or years, decades in your current place. You have a dream and a vision of where you want to be. You have written it down, right? You've made a plan. You've made checklists. You've done your pro and con lists, and you've gone through them all. And that pro list is longer than the con list, or vice versa. But you still have to take action. And as subtle as that action might seem, in reality, it's massive action because you are choosing discomfort. You are choosing the unknown over what you are already experiencing or have experienced. The path that you're on now, the life that you're living now, the relationship that you're in now, whether it's positive or not, the business venture that you're in right now, whether it's fruitful or not, whether it's fulfilling or not, the job that you have, whether it's destroying you from the inside and you just hate doing what you're doing, or maybe it's making you happy. Your health. Maybe you're unhappy with the way that you look, the way that you feel, the way that your clothes fit. And there are so many steps that you need to take to change that outcome. And often in my life, faced with those actions, right? Faced with that massive action and the unknowns and the discomfort, you freeze. And you continue to carry on out of habit, out of routine. It's extraordinarily difficult to change those patterns. And the longer you wait to take decisive action, the more difficult it will become to take the action that's needed. And the easier it will become to stay where you are. I've used this quote quite often, and it came from a professor when I was in college. I went to a liberal arts college, a private Catholic university, and we had to take religion classes, obviously. And it was a professor that I had for one of those religion classes, and she said, and I don't remember where the exact quote comes from, but and I'm paraphrasing here. Where you stand determines what you see. And if you want to see something differently, you have to move. But that movement is the most difficult. Because staying where you are, keeping the viewpoint that you have, reliving the experiences that you've lived, repeating the decisions that keep you where you are, that keep you comfortable, even if that comfort is undesirable, even if that comfort, in effect, causes you pain. It is always going to be easiest to stay where you are. Most of us don't want to upset the apple cart, right? We don't want to upset the status quo. Because in some way that comfort, that familiarity is peaceful, even if that peace is full of chaos. So it's quite the juxtaposition to sit here and say, you have to be decisive and you have to take massive action. And in a sense, what I'm saying is hypocritical. Because quite often in my own life, faced with discomfort of making massive changes, life-changing decisions, I've hesitated. I've stayed. I've carried on out of habit and out of routine and out of comfort. So if I were to flash back to when I was 20 years old, imagine me at 41 walking into a dorm room of a 20-year-old, faced with a life of decision making and having made very few consequential decisions at a very young age. And you add 20 plus years on top of it and experience. And the lesson I would try to teach myself then is the longer you wait, the harder it will become. It will never get easier. So regardless of what your plan is, what your goal is, what your dreams are, is the fear of making the change greater than what will happen if you refuse to take that change? When the motivation to make the move, when the motivation to experience the desired outcome is greater than the fear of change, you'll make the move. But I would be lying to you if I told you there was an easy path. Yes, the solution is simple. Make the move. It's easy for me to say that, right? Just make the move. Go for it. Take the chance. Make the jump. Push all your chips into the middle of the table. It's easy for me to say that. Ask yourself in your situation, whatever it is, if I did nothing, if I continued doing the same thing as I'm doing right now, what would my life look like a year from now if I did nothing, if I made no change? We could be talking about your fitness, your health. We could be talking about your business, your relationships, romantic or otherwise. If I did nothing, what would my life look like a year from now? Now, my crystal ball's in the shop. I'm not really good at predicting the future, and neither are you. Unless you're clairvoyant or something, you know. You have access to some information that I don't have, and then we should probably play the lottery or bet on some football. But If you were to make the uncomfortable decision today, you've been putting it off. You've been making excuses as to why this isn't the right time, why you need to think about it a little bit more, why you need to do some more research, why you need to make a better plan. If you made the decision today to stop being gray about it, to commit to being black and white, to taking decisive action, how would your life improve 1 year from now? So it's 2 questions to ask yourself. 2 things I want you to think about. And it's 2 sides of the same coin. The coin being a time frame 1 year from now. Doing nothing, making no change, carrying on exactly the same way as you're carrying on now. And the flip side, massive change, discomfort, fear of the unknown. You already know the outcome of this one with a fair amount of certainty. If you continue the path that you're on, you have a pretty good idea of what that outcome is going to be like. What you don't know is if you make this decision, if you make the decision to take massive action, to make a huge change, to go forth into the dark, whatever analogy you want to use to pull this together. And y'all know I love analogies, so would your life be better or worse if you made the decision today to not be indecisive? If you committed to doing something for which you don't know the outcome, but there's a high likelihood that your situation will change for the better. That's a tough decision. I could sit here and tell you it's easy. I can only speak from my own experience and the countless times that I've faced a life-changing decision. And I'm not trying to be overly dramatic, but it's, you have a decision to make and you refuse to make it, or you make the same decision you've always made. You make the same set of mistakes that you've always made. I can speak from experience and share my experience that it's not going to get better. So, in the sake of keeping this brief, whatever that decision is, whatever that outcome is, if you continue to be indecisive about it, you are in fact being decisive. You are accepting the status quo. You are allowing your future to be shaped into something you have written down, you have planned, you have dreamed about. You are allowing that future to not be what you've planned for, to not be what you've dreamed about, to not be what you've envisioned it to be. I really want you to take a hard lesson out of this one, or put some thought into this one. Continuing on the path that you're on will not change your outcome if, in fact, your indecision is keeping you on that path. Let me know if that makes sense. I'd really like some feedback on this episode. And it's something I'm really passionate about. I hate to use that term because I think it's overused. But whether I'm talking to clients, friends, or family, the topic doesn't really change. The details, rather, don't really change. It's the same concepts. So in this moment, you can make a choice to allow your fear of change, to allow the fear of the unknown to keep you where you are, to keep you comfortable, even if where you are is not, in fact, comfortable, but it's familiar. But what I would like to try to get across is that 20 years from now, or 10 years, or 5, or 1 year from now, if you don't make the change, if you don't make the jump, you'll probably be listening to somebody's podcast, watching someone's YouTube, and they'll be telling you the same thing that I'm telling you now. I'm not the first to say it. I won't be the last. So whatever that vision is that you have for the life that you want, for the relationship that you want, the business that you want, the physique that you want, the level of health that you want, where you are right now is the culmination of years and years of decision or indecision. If you want to see things differently, you have to move. Because the last thing I want for me, and the last thing I want for you, is for you to wake up a year from now and be in the exact same spot, asking the same questions, seeking the same advice. The advice is already here. It's been here for years. You probably already know it. You've probably already heard it. You've thought about it. You've thought about it long enough. Quit thinking. Start executing. Chad Wright, and he was I believe he was a former SEAL. He was a special operator. And he was talking about, when they would lace explosives around a door before they would blow the door, essentially, they would say 3 times, execute, execute, execute. Boom. So I'm going to leave you with this today. You know what your goals are. You know what your visions are. You know the life that you want, the life that you dream about. You know that life that keeps you up or wakes you up in the middle of the night? That last thing you think about before you fall asleep? All you have to do now is execute, execute, execute. And it can be yours. I just wanted to take a minute to thank you for listening to the show. Whether you watched it on YouTube, whether you streamed it on whatever podcast streaming service you choose, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate it. This show has been a blast to bring back. I'm enjoying everybody that I'm speaking with, and I'm having a blast making the content that I'm making for you guys. But I wanted to talk a little bit about why I'm here. As you may already know, I'm a coach. I've been a coach for over 20 years, and I've recently changed a lot of how I approach my coaching and the coaching program that I offer. So if that's something you want to know a little bit more about, click on the link in the bio. Check out what I'm about. And once I've gained your trust, let's talk about working together. Thanks again.